this was one of the more interesting ones for obvious reasons because Oklahoma is moving over from the Big 12 to the SEC. All you Oklahoma fans, welcome to the First and Long College Football Show. You'll be seeing this clip here in a couple days. We record these on our live show that comes on typically every Wednesday. We did it on Thursday this week, but hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us. We'll be talking a lot of Oklahoma football this year for sure. Look, let's kind of just go into what what the challenges that they'll be facing. More obvious, ones as far as going into the SEC. They've got some things to handle on the line of scrimmage for sure. But then we'll kind of look at the schedule and go from there. Definitely not an easy. There's no easy SEC schedules anymore, by the way. I mean, so whenever we say this schedule's hard, everybody's got a hard schedule. There are some that are a little harder than others, just because of the fact that you got your Georgias and your Bamas and your Missouris and you Texas and all that stuff. So there's tough games for everybody, but Oklahoma's got to bulk up, Mason. There's no secret about it. Look, their biggest defensive lineman right now is about 285. The guy that they're going to be starting in the middle of that defense this year. Okay. Everybody's got to put on weight, bro. 10 to 15 pounds, pretty much across the board. I went and listened to, I believe his name is Dave, but it's Eichert. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He played for Oklahoma years ago. And I like Eichert a lot. I go listen to his show, especially when Oklahoma, right before they have a big game or something like that. But anyway, I went and listened to his show and kind of like a state of the program type show that they did. And pretty much all the Oklahoma fans will tell you, and anybody that watches this program closely, we got to get better on the offensive and defensive line. It's no secret that this defense at times got pushed around last year. And it's not to say that there's not talent on this defense. There obviously is talent. But just overall, I feel like over time, this Oklahoma team has kind of adapted to the Big 12 and, just normal Big 12 protocol. And that is you don't need quite as big of players in the Big 12 to push people around or not get pushed around. And that's about to change. As we go through the schedule, I mean, I just said there's no easy SEC schedules anymore. So there's going to be 300+ pound defensive linemen, 330, 40, 50+ pound offensive linemen every single game. There's NFL talent out there every single game. It's just a different ball game. But besides the offensive and defensive line, and speaking of offensive line, I think a big piece of that is going to be Caleb Sexton. That was somebody that they were talking about on their show that's got to gain some weight, and he's going to be taking over that right tackle spot. Offensive line is obviously going to be paramount because Jackson Arnold is going to be making his first full year of starts at quarterback. So they're having their winter camp right now. He's got to become that leader that's going to step out there and call the shots for this offense and get this team going down the track that they need for this long season ahead. But they got to get better, as I said, offensive, defensive line. Salt was a nice piece at running back. They have a freshman coming in, and his name escapes me now that we're live. Obviously, that's when you forget everything. But Saltchuk ain't going to get it done. You need more than one running back. We just talked about that in one of the other videos we just did. You've got to have a stable of backs, and there's some question marks at running back for this team. So those are just kind of some of the areas that I think that Oklahoma needs to work on. Mason, you want to take us through the schedule real quick?
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned the offensive and defensive lines. David Stone was a top 5 overall player that they ended up picking up on the defensive line.
Yeah,
he's going to have to step up, and it's unfortunate to ask a freshman to play defensive tackle. That's a very tough position to put a freshman in. There haven't been too many that I can think of that have done it well. Jalen Carter is one that comes to mind.
Cody.
Brian Brzee, Mount Cody. There have been some like legendary, like college football Hall of Fame type names to do it, but David Pollock is one. But there's just not many guys that can do it. David Stone, talent wise, is probably best fit to do it in this class. Maybe Williams Waniri, who ended up going to Missouri. Maybe he's another guy who could probably come in and play right away in the SEC. But nonetheless, he's going to have to put on some weight, kind of get that body going early, and be prepared to step into the gauntlet this coming season. One other thing. So, sorry, I just had a notification come up. On this schedule, one of the games that I think is most important in this season for Oklahoma is going to be the Tennessee game on September 21st. For obvious reasons, right? It's really the first should be the first time that Oklahoma gets tested in the SEC, and in their schedule next year. And also because this was such a big game a couple years ago, and it was a very fun game to watch. That's To me, if they can win that game, I think that the season sets up pretty well for them. If you can beat Tennessee, you got to feel pretty good about beating Auburn. Now it's going to be a tough matchup because it's on the plains. I think that Auburn is going to be a sneaky good team next year, and if they can beat Oklahoma, maybe that's when the rest of the nation and college football fans start to pick up on Auburn. But I think that Oklahoma can beat Auburn, right? This is a winnable game for Oklahoma. I'm not going to say they should beat them because, I do think that Auburn's going to be pretty good. But if they beat Tennessee and they can beat Auburn, then you got to buy heading into Texas, who you get on, which is a neutral site game. But I think that if you can start off 5-0, the Texas game, if you can just remain competitive, right? Obviously, you hope to win it. It kind of defines your season to win that game. But if you can remain competitive, you can kind of stay in this 12-team hunt, right? Then you've got South Carolina. That should be a win, but don't put it past the Gamecocks to win and beat somebody that they shouldn't beat necessarily. Ole Miss is going to be a really tough matchup. I do think that it's winnable for Oklahoma, but I would favor Ole Miss at this point. Maine's a win. Missouri is a 50-50 game to me. Missouri's probably a little bit better at this point, but I think that late in the season, Oklahoma is going to look much different than they do now. And then you've got Alabama and LSU. Those last three games, pretty tough task, right? Mizzou, Alabama, and LSU. Can you find a way to win two of those games? I think that's the path for Oklahoma to make it into the college football playoff. And I think that they're a talented team, and I think that they're capable of doing that. But to me, that's the path for them to do that. Win 4 out of the first 5 games, right? In the middle of that schedule, you could probably take 1 loss, and then I guess at that point you kind of have to win both of the last 2, but you've got about 2 losses, I think, of wiggle room here if you're Oklahoma, and if they can get through the schedule with just 2 losses, they're probably going to be making it to the college football playoff. I don't necessarily think that it's playoff or bust for Oklahoma. I don't think that that's where they're at as a program right now. At least it shouldn't be. But can they step into the SEC and be a competitive team, maybe win some big historic type games that they shouldn't win? And I think that would be a success in my eyes for the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yeah, I think the Tennessee game is really big. You get Tennessee at home. You talked about that Auburn game. You got to go on the road to Jordan-Hare. Auburn, we took a look at their schedule last week, and you can go check that out in the videos clips if you want to check out Auburn's schedule. I think Auburn has a really good chance of being undefeated at this point and being 4-0. And Oklahoma has a chance to be 4-0. They may drop that game to Tennessee. We'll have to see. But when they go to Auburn, there will not have been a stadium in the Big 12 that will be rocking like Jordan-Hare will. And that's one thing that I'm really interested to see is how Jackson Arnold reacts to his first SEC road game being at Jordan-Hare, dude. I mean, we've seen some crazy things happen in that building just as short ago as last year, just a few games ago, right? I mean, there are some wild things that go on in that stadium, and I'm very interested to see how that Oklahoma team handles it. There won't be an environment like that they had been through other than maybe like the Texas game last year, and that's a 50-50 crowd. So I don't think that counts. I don't. We've been in those neutral site stadiums before, you and I. I mean, it's not the same as
Yeah.
a home game for somebody, obviously. So that's going to be a really tough one in my eyes. I think that that's a game that you circle and you say, okay, if Oklahoma can win that game, I think it's going to be a pretty damn successful year. And I think Auburn is one of those games, Mason. I think that's going to be a pivotal game for their season because if you do go and take that loss to Auburn, then you've got your bye week and then you go into the Texas game. I don't think you want to go limping into that Texas game for sure. And we're going to go over the Texas's schedule here shortly, but um, you talked about the South Carolina game, getting them at home, at Ole Miss. The Ole Miss is not it's not in the upper echelon of home field environments in college football by any means, but they are going to have a very talented football team. I saw kind of a funny joke the other day. They had Bill Connolly had put out his returning production numbers, and somebody commented on there and said, "Ole Miss's defense is returning everybody else's defense." And they are.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. Ole Miss was at the bottom of the list, like returning production was like low percentage, and it's like they're returning everybody else's production um, through the transfer portal. So they'll be a very good team, and that'll be a tough game for sure. At Mizzou, going to be tough. Again, not a really tough road environment. Um, at Mizzou, that's not one of the premier stadiums of the SEC by any means. And then you're going to end the year at LSU. Not to skip over that Alabama game, but you do get Alabama at home. That it's going to be a fun game to watch, but um, that at LSU game will be another tough road game. So at Auburn, at Ole Miss, at LSU, I think, and at Missouri are four games that I think are going to decide whether or not this was a successful season for Oklahoma in 2024, 2025 for sure.